There are moments in your life when everything inside you screams that you should be doing more fixing, more trying, more running, more solving. You feel guilty resting. You feel anxious when things are silent. You feel behind when you're not constantly moving. And in those moments, your mind convinces you that stillness is laziness, that doing nothing is failure, that pausing means you're losing. But what if that's the biggest lie your mind has ever told you? What if the thing you fear, the quiet, the pause, the stillness, is actually the doorway to your deepest clarity? What if doing nothing is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of inner strength? What if the hidden reward you've been searching for, the one you've been chasing through endless busyness, has been waiting for you in the space you always avoid? Because here's the truth: the mind never stops talking. It plans, predicts, compares, worries, replays, imagines, criticizes, and pushes. And you think you have to obey it. You think you have to react to every thought, fix every feeling, solve every moment. But the moment you finally stop, even for a few seconds, something incredible happens. Your mind begins to settle. Your inner world begins to shift. Your intuition begins to rise. When you do nothing, the noise fades and the truth appears. Doing nothing is not inactivity. It is awareness. It is alignment. It is the moment your mind steps aside and your deeper wisdom steps forward. It is the place where answers come without being forced, where clarity appears without being chased, where peace enters without being earned. Most people never experience this because they are addicted to movement, terrified of stillness, and suspicious of rest. But what if the most important decision you make today is to pause, to breathe, to stop running long enough to hear the voice inside you that has been drowned out by mental noise? Doing nothing is not giving up. Doing nothing is giving space for healing, for truth, for direction. And the reward is far greater than you think. There is a strange pressure that follows you everywhere in life. A silent belief that if you are not moving, you are falling behind. If you are not working, you are wasting time. If you are not planning, you are unprepared. The world has convinced you that your worth is tied to productivity, that your value is measured by how busy you are, that rest is something you earn only after exhaustion. And so you push yourself harder, think faster, move constantly, and ignore every signal your mind and body send you. But deep inside, a quiet truth keeps calling you, a truth you rarely listen to. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Doing nothing sounds irresponsible to a world addicted to motion. It sounds lazy to a mind trained to hustle. But doing nothing is not the absence of action. It is the presence of awareness. It is the conscious decision to step back from the noise so you can see life more clearly. Most people never give themselves permission to pause. They are afraid of what they might feel, afraid of the thoughts that might rise, afraid of facing the emptiness that silence exposes. But in that silence lies the very clarity they've been searching for. Think about how many decisions you've made out of panic, fear, or pressure. Decisions rushed because you felt you had to act immediately. Decisions forced because you feared falling behind. Decisions made while your mind was loud, anxious, or overwhelmed. Those decisions rarely lead you to peace. They lead you to regret, confusion, and exhaustion. But when you allow yourself to stop, truly stop, your mind slows down long enough for wisdom to surface. This is the hidden reward of doing nothing. It reconnects you to the part of you that knows what to do next. Most people don't realize this because they mistake mental activity for progress. They believe that thinking harder will create solutions. But thinking and clarity are not the same thing. In fact, the harder you think, the more tangled your thoughts become. The more you chase answers, the farther they run. The more you strain, the less you see. Your mind is like muddy water. The more you stir it, the cloudier it becomes. But when you stop stirring, everything settles, and what was hidden becomes clear. Doing nothing creates this settling. It gives your thoughts time to organize themselves. It gives your emotions space to breathe. It gives your energy permission to reset. And it gives your intuition a chance to speak. You cannot hear the quiet inner voice that guides your life when you are drowning in noise. You cannot feel the gentle pull of your true direction when you are overwhelmed by mental pressure. You cannot see the next step when your awareness is clouded by constant activity. Stillness is not the absence of progress. It is the birthplace of it. When you allow yourself to do nothing, something magical begins to happen inside you. The fear that once felt so urgent suddenly feels softer. The confusion that once suffocated you becomes easier to navigate. The problem that once consumed your mind reveals a simple solution you never saw before. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Stillness changes your perspective. It shifts the way you interpret your life. It allows you to step back far enough to see what truly matters. Your mind cannot solve problems from the same level of chaos that created them. But when you step into stillness, you rise above the noise. You see things from a higher place, a place of calm, intuition, and truth. This is the reason Vincent Peale emphasized quietness so deeply. He understood a simple but life-changing psychology. When you quiet your mind, you open your heart. And the heart always knows what the mind forgets. Maybe there's been a moment in your life when you accidentally experienced this without realizing it. A walk alone, when the world finally felt soft. A night when you lay in silence and suddenly understood something clearly. A moment of exhaustion, when you gave up trying so hard and the answer appeared. Those moments weren't accidents. They were glimpses into the hidden reward of doing nothing. The mind releases its grip and inner wisdom rises. You've been taught to trust effort more than alignment, action more than awareness, movement more than clarity. But effort without clarity leads to burnout. Action without alignment leads to regret. Movement without awareness leads to wasted energy. The pause, the stillness, the doing nothing is what gives meaning to every step you take afterward. And here is the gentle truth you may have forgotten. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to sit in silence without guilt. You are allowed to do nothing without feeling like you are falling behind. The world will not collapse because you stopped for a moment. In fact, your inner world might finally begin to rebuild. Doing nothing is not abandoning your goals. It is preparing yourself for them. It is letting your mind breathe so your spirit can think. It is creating space for intuition to guide you where effort cannot. It is understanding that the answers you chase may be waiting in the very place you avoid, the quiet, the calm, the stillness. And once you realize this, you stop seeing stillness as a waste of time and start seeing it as the most powerful step you can take. There is a strange thing that happens when you finally allow yourself to be still. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Your mind starts protesting. It tells you you're being unproductive. It tells you you're wasting time. It tells you that something bad will happen if you stop moving. This discomfort is not a sign that stillness is wrong. It's a sign that your mind is addicted to noise. You've spent so many years filling every quiet moment with distraction, worry, or activity that silence feels unfamiliar. But just like any addiction, the discomfort is temporary. The clarity that follows is permanent. Doing nothing is a psychological reset. It interrupts old patterns. It challenges the belief that you must always be doing something to be valuable. It forces your mind to confront the uncomfortable truth that busyness was never the solution, it was the escape. People don't stay busy because they are strong. They stay busy because they are afraid of what will rise when they slow down. They fear their own thoughts. They fear their own emotions. They fear the quiet because the quiet shows them parts of themselves they've been avoiding. But avoiding yourself is the very reason life feels heavy. When you practice the art of doing nothing, you're not escaping your responsibilities, you're returning to your center. You're resetting the inner compass that gets thrown off by daily chaos. You're giving your emotional system permission to breathe. In this stillness, the worries you thought were urgent suddenly reveal themselves as exaggerated. The fears you thought were reality become shadows. The pressure you thought was coming from the world is exposed as something you were putting on yourself. You begin to see life without distortion. The reason stillness is so powerful is because it shows you where your real battles are. Not outside you, not in your circumstances, not in other people, but inside your mind. Most of the stress you carry doesn't come from your situation. It comes from the story your mind tells about the situation. And the mind loves to dramatize. It exaggerates problems, imagines catastrophes, and paints the future with unnecessary fear. When you never pause, you believe these stories without question. But when you are still, you begin to see through them. You realize that most of your suffering was created by the mind, not reality. Doing nothing allows the truth to rise to the surface. You begin to recognize which thoughts are fear, which are memory, which are old conditioning, and which are genuinely guiding you. Not all thoughts should be trusted. Not every inner voice speaks truth. But you can only tell the difference when you step out of mental noise. This is why so many people feel lost. Their lives are full of action but empty of awareness. They move without direction. They decide without clarity. They react without understanding. Action without inner peace is chaos. Stillness without guilt is where alignment. The great thinkers, spiritual teachers, and psychologists all understood something profound. You cannot transform your life from the same level of noise that created your problems. Clarity requires quiet, insight requires space, wisdom requires pause. This is the hidden reward of doing nothing. It puts you back in touch with your inner intelligence. You've been taught to rely on effort, but your greatest breakthroughs come from awareness, not force. When you allow yourself to pause, you begin to notice the small signals inside you, signals you were too busy to hear before. The subtle pull of intuition, the gentle whisper of what feels right, the quiet ache that tells you what needs healing, the sense of direction that rises from a place you can't explain but always recognize. These whispers guide you more accurately than any amount of overthinking ever could. Life becomes easier not because your problems disappear, but because your clarity increases. And clarity changes everything. Problems that once felt impossible become simple. Decisions that once overwhelmed you become obvious. Emotional patterns you couldn't understand suddenly make sense. You start to see that your mind was never the enemy. It was simply overworked, overstimulated, and exhausted. It needed rest as much as your body does. Doing nothing becomes a form of inner healing. At first, you may feel guilty when you slow down. That guilt is a sign of conditioning, not truth. You were raised to believe that rest must be earned, that silence is suspicious, that peace is a luxury instead of a necessity. But human beings are not machines. Your mind needs space. Your soul needs quiet. Your clarity needs stillness. You are not here to run endlessly. You are here to live fully. And sometimes living fully means pausing so your inner world can come into alignment again. When you practice stillness consistently, even a few minutes a day, you begin to experience a deep shift. Your reactions soften, your energy stabilizes, your emotions become easier to handle. You stop being pulled around by every small disturbance. You begin to walk through the world with a calm confidence, a quiet strength. This is not arrogance, it is inner alignment. It is the power that comes from being connected to yourself instead of lost in thoughts. And here is the part most people never realize. When you do nothing, your mind reorganizes itself naturally. The same way the body heals when you rest, the mind heals when you stop forcing it. Solutions rise, creativity awakens, perspective expands. What felt heavy becomes light. What felt confusing becomes clear. This is the way the mind was designed. It doesn't need control. It needs space. Vincent Peale believed that faith, calmness, and quiet confidence were the strongest tools for emotional transformation. Doing nothing is how you create the environment for these qualities to grow. It is the soil in which peace takes root. And once peace takes root, everything in your life begins to shift with it. Doing nothing is not about avoiding life. It is about preparing yourself to meet life with clarity instead of chaos. It is the hidden reward that gives power to every action you take afterward. Because when your inner world is calm, your outer world becomes manageable. And when you move from awareness instead of pressure, life begins to unfold in ways you once thought were impossible. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize that constant effort has not brought them the peace they were promised. You work harder, think more, push yourself further, but somehow life doesn't feel lighter, it feels heavier. Somewhere along the way, society convinced you that the more you do, the more you become. But human beings are not defined by endless motion. You cannot outrun your doubts. You cannot outthink your fears. You cannot outwork your way into inner peace. Peace does not arrive when everything is done. Peace arrives when you stop needing to be in control. Doing nothing teaches you this. It teaches you to surrender control without losing direction. It teaches you that letting go is not giving up. It is trusting the deeper intelligence within you. When you stop forcing outcomes, life begins to unfold in a way that feels natural instead of exhausting. You start to see that many things you tried to fix were already fixing themselves. Many answers you chased were already forming within you. Many problems you stressed over were never as large as your mind made them. This is the reward hidden inside stillness. The world doesn't fall apart when you stop fighting. Instead, your inner world begins to come together. For years, you may have believed that worry is what keeps life under control. That thinking about a problem endlessly somehow protects you from it. But worry is not preparation. Worry is fear rehearsed over and over again. When you're constantly thinking, constantly planning, constantly analyzing, your mind becomes trapped in loops that lead nowhere. But when you pause, when you do nothing, the loop breaks. The mind stops spinning long enough for insight to appear. And in that quiet space, solutions rise from a deeper place than the thinking mind, a place of intuition, faith, and inner wisdom. Stillness is not passive, it is receptive. It is the state in which your mind stops resisting and begins receiving. You receive clarity, you receive calmness, you receive guidance. You receive ideas that feel inspired instead of forced. The greatest breakthroughs in human history did not come from frantic thinking. They came from moments of quiet reflection, moments where the mind opened instead of struggled. When you do nothing, you tap into this same source of inspiration. But the mind will resist this at first. It will tell you that if you don't act immediately, everything will fall apart. It will tell you that doing nothing is irresponsible. It will tell you that rest is dangerous. But this is only because the mind is uncomfortable with silence. It loves noise because noise keeps it in control. The mind is terrified of stillness because stillness reveals truth, and truth often challenges the stories the mind has built. Doing nothing exposes the illusions you have believed for years, that you must earn rest, that you must solve everything alone, that you must always be productive to be worthy. The moment you challenge these beliefs, your life begins to shift. You start to understand that your value is not in your activity, it is in your presence. The world does not benefit from a burnt-out version of you. It benefits from a grounded, clear, centered version of you. And that version of you can only emerge through stillness. When you practice the art of doing nothing, you begin to notice the subtle areas of your life that were draining you without your awareness. The unnecessary responsibilities you carried, the emotional burdens you swallowed, the constant pressure to be perfect, the invisible expectations you placed on yourself. In the quiet, you see them clearly, and clarity gives you the power to release what no longer serves you. Doing nothing teaches you emotional honesty. It teaches you to face the feelings you've ignored, the tiredness you pushed through, the sadness you avoided, the fear you pretended wasn't there, the hope you forgot you had. When your mind is still, your heart finally speaks, and what it tells you is always simple, always truthful, and always gentle. Maybe it will tell you you're carrying too much. Maybe it will whisper, this path is draining you. Maybe it will reveal, you've been strong for too long. Maybe it will remind you, you deserve peace. Maybe it will simply say, slow down. And slowing down is not failure, it is wisdom. Slowing down gives your nervous system space to recalibrate. It gives your emotions space to process. It gives your intuition space to rise. It gives your energy space to rebuild. When you stop pushing, your body stops bracing. When you stop resisting, your heart stops tightening. When you stop controlling, your spirit begins to breathe again. This is why stillness is transformative. Not because it changes the external world, but because it changes your inner posture toward life. You stop meeting life with tension. You start meeting it with presence. You stop reacting to everything. You start responding from clarity. You stop rushing. You start noticing. You stop fearing silence. You start befriending it. And in this friendship with silence, something beautiful happens. Life becomes easier. Not because challenges disappear, but because your relationship to them changes. A calm mind can face anything. A peaceful heart can endure anything. A centered soul can navigate anything. Doing nothing builds this inner strength. It trains you to stand still without collapsing, to breathe without panicking, to trust without seeing the full path. Vincent Peale believed that quietness strengthens faith. Faith in yourself, faith in life, faith in something greater than your fears. When you are still, you remember that you are supported. You remember that not every burden is yours to hold. You remember that life has a natural rhythm and you don't need to fight it. You remember that peace is not found in the world. It is found within you. In the end, the greatest reward of doing nothing is not rest, not clarity, not creativity. It is returning to yourself, the you beneath the urgency, beneath the noise, beneath the expectations, the you who knows how to breathe, the you who knows how to trust, the you who knows how to live. There comes a moment when a person realizes that life's greatest wisdom does not appear when they are pushing, striving, or forcing their way forward, but when they surrender long enough to hear the quiet guidance within. Doing nothing is not about stepping away from life, it's about stepping into a deeper awareness of it. It's about remembering that you are more than your work, more than your responsibilities, more than the pressure you carry. Stillness brings you back to yourself in a world that's constantly trying to pull you away. When you allow yourself to do nothing, you start to feel something you may have forgotten, your natural rhythm. You notice how your body breathes when it's not rushed. You notice how your thoughts soften when they are not chased. You notice how your emotions flow when they are not suppressed. Most people live their lives at a pace that is completely disconnected from their internal rhythm. They run faster than their spirit can follow. They move before their heart is ready. They push when their body is asking for rest. And in this imbalance, life begins to feel like a burden instead of a journey. Doing nothing helps you realign with the rhythm you were designed to live in. A rhythm that is not frantic, but steady. Not chaotic, but intentional. Not overwhelming, but peaceful. Life has seasons, and so do you. But when you never stop, you can't tell whether you're in a season of growth, healing, reflection, or renewal. Stillness reveals the season you're in. It shows you what your soul is craving, whether that's rest, clarity, courage, release, or preparation. The greatest misunderstandings about doing nothing come from fear. Fear that life will slow down if you slow down. Fear that opportunities will disappear. Fear that others will outrun you. Fear that stillness means falling behind. But life is not a race, it's a relationship. Everything meant for you requires your presence, not your exhaustion. When you are calm, you see opportunities you were too overwhelmed to notice before. When you are centered, you make decisions that align with your inner truth rather than external pressure. When you are still, you tap into an inner knowing that makes your path clearer than any amount of frantic thinking ever could. Think about a time when you made a decision out of panic. It probably felt rushed, heavy, or misaligned. Now think about a time when you paused, breathed, and acted from calmness. The outcome felt different, didn't it? That difference isn't luck, it's awareness. It's the power of acting from clarity instead of fear. Doing nothing creates the space that clarity needs to grow. One of the quietest truths about human psychology is that the mind cannot hear wisdom when it is stressed. Stress narrows perception. Fear exaggerates danger. Anxiety distorts reality. When your mind is tense, everything feels urgent, threatening, or overwhelming. Stillness dissolves this distortion. It softens the grip of fear. It widens your perspective. It allows your inner wisdom to rise like water settling in a clear glass. And something surprising happens in this clarity. You begin to realize how many things you were forcing unnecessarily. Conversations you pushed for that didn't need to happen. Problems you tried to solve that were resolving themselves. People you chased who were never meant to stay. Goals you pursued because you felt pressured, not because you felt aligned. In stillness, you see all the places where your effort was heavier than needed. Doing nothing teaches you trust. Trust that life doesn't collapse when you stop controlling it. Trust that not every battle requires your energy. Trust that silence doesn't mean failure, it means recalibration. Trust that the right opportunities don't require you to beg for them. Trust that your inner guidance never misleads you when you give it space to speak. Many people think strength is pushing harder, staying busy, filling every moment. But true strength is knowing when to stop. True strength is giving your mind permission to rest. True strength is choosing peace over pressure. True strength is trusting that clarity will come when you stop demanding it. Stillness is not weakness, it is wisdom matured into inner confidence. And once you begin practicing stillness intentionally, you discover something even deeper. The world inside you is far more intelligent than the world outside you. The voice within is wiser than the voices around you. The intuition you carry is stronger than the fear you feel. But intuition is quiet. It does not shout over noise. It only emerges when you slow down enough to hear it. Doing nothing strengthens your connection to this inner voice, making your life feel guided rather than chaotic. There is a reason many great thinkers, spiritual teachers, and philosophers spent so much time in silence. They understood that the mind becomes a powerful servant when it is quiet, but a terrible master when it is loud. They understood that action taken from clarity multiplies results, while action taken from fear drains energy. They understood that the greatest changes in life happen not when you rush, but when you realign. Doing nothing allows the dust of your life to settle. It reveals what truly matters. It exposes what is draining you. It highlights what is ready to end. It illuminates what is waiting to begin. It reminds you that even when you're still, life is moving inside you, around you, and for you. And perhaps the most profound reward of all is this. In stillness, you reconnect with your sense of being alive. You stop living mechanically. You feel the air again. You feel your breath again. You feel your existence again. You remember that you are not a machine made for endless output. You are a human being made for awareness, connection, and meaning. Doing nothing is the return to your humanity, the return to your center, the return to the part of you untouched by pressure, noise, or chaos. It is where your peace lives. It is where your courage grows. It is where your next chapter begins. At the end of all your striving, all your pushing, all your worrying, there comes a moment where life teaches you a quieter truth. Peace is not something you chase. It is something you return to. Every time you stop, every time you breathe, every time you give yourself permission to do nothing, you step back into the place within you that has always been steady, calm, and whole. That place didn't disappear. It simply got buried under noise. There is a version of you that remembers how to be still, a version of you that isn't afraid of silence, a version of you that listens more than it reacts, that trusts more than it panics, that understands more than it rushes. When you let yourself do nothing, you reconnect with that version, the one that walks gently, thinks clearly, feels deeply, and acts wisely. You've lived long enough believing that motion equals progress, that effort equals worth, that busyness equals success. But the truth is, progress without direction is just exhaustion. Effort without peace is just tension. Busyness without awareness is just distraction. And distraction is the enemy of growth. Growth only happens when you pause long enough to see yourself clearly. Doing nothing gives you back your clarity. It gives you back your creativity. It gives you back your inner balance. It reminds you that life is not meant to be a constant sprint. Even the heart rests between beats. Even the ocean rests between waves. Even the sun rests between horizons. Nature moves in cycles. So do you. And stillness is not a break from life. It is part of the rhythm of life. In the quiet, your intuition rises. Your next step becomes clearer. Your fears lose their volume. Your doubts lose their authority. You stop trying to force answers and start allowing them to appear. You stop chasing everything and start attracting what aligns with your peace. This is not magic, it is alignment. And alignment is far more powerful than pressure. The hidden reward of doing nothing is that you rediscover the power you forgot you had, the power to choose from calmness instead of chaos, the power to respond instead of react, the power to walk at your own pace instead of the world's pace, the power to feel that you are guided, supported, and steady even when life is uncertain. So let today be the day you stop apologizing for needing rest. Let today be the day you stop feeling guilty for slowing down. Let today be the day you stop measuring your worth by your productivity. Let today be the day you choose presence over pressure, stillness over stress, clarity over noise. Because when you do nothing, you are not doing less. You are doing what matters. You are giving space for the real you to rise. You are creating room for your peace to return. You are allowing life to meet you where you are instead of where you're forcing yourself to be. And in that stillness, everything begins to change. Not because the world becomes easier, but because you become clearer.